I pepper-sprayed the HOA president right in the face. He had broken into my ranch, my private fenced-off land clearly marked as not part of any HOA property. When I saw him poking around my barn with a flashlight, I didn't stop to ask questions. I had warned them before. I told the HOA board, especially Harold Simmons, their self-appointed king, to stay off my land. I had no gate connecting to their neighborhood, no legal ties to their fancy suburban nonsense. My heart raced as I crouched behind the barn door, Max, my loyal dog, at my side, a low growl resonating in his chest. The moonlight illuminated Harold's smug face, his polo shirt accentuating the authority he tried to wield. "What the hell are you doing in my barn?" I shouted, chest tight with anger as I kicked the door open. He turned, momentarily stunned. "This is HOA business. We got complaints." But before he could finish spouting his self-righteous garbage, I unleashed the protector I always kept handy, my pepper spray. The burst hit him square in the face, just as he opened his mouth to utter some threat that wouldn't have mattered. He howled in pain, stumbling back and dropping his flashlight as he clawed at his eyes. "You'll regret this," he choked out, rolling in the dirt as coughs racked his body. A noise caught my attention. The sharp crack of tires on gravel approached. Red and blue lights danced across the barn's wooden walls, and I felt a jolt of panic. Had someone tipped them off? As Harold wailed on the ground, I raised my hands to signal that I was not a threat to the officers who were stepping out of their cruiser. "Sir, what's going on here?" One officer shouted, eyes darting between me and Harold, who now resembled a thrashing fish, desperate for air. "This man broke into my barn," I said, my voice steadying as adrenaline kicked in. "He has no right to be here." "Is that true, Mr. Simmons?" the officer directed at Harold, who was slowly recovering but was still blinded and stumbling. "I was conducting an investigation on his illegal activities." Harold sputtered, glaring at me even through the sting of the spray. The officer raised an eyebrow, skepticism flooding his features. "Investigation? On his private property? I'm not a part of your HOA. You have no claim here," I interjected, feeling emboldened by the law on my side. Memories of the endless harassment, letters about my unkempt chickens, a rusted roof, never-ending complaints, fueled my resolve. "Can you prove that?" Harold spat a moment later, his voice taking on that condescending tone that had infuriated me for months. "Only if you take your very well-dressed self to court," I shot back, my heart pounding. "I'll show you every document that proves you're a bully on a power trip." The officers exchanged glances, the tension heavy and palpable. As one of them paced toward us, I could feel the unease radiating from Harold, who had clearly underestimated my reaction to his invasion. "What do you want from me?" I asked, stepping closer to Harold, the anger simmering just under my skin. Harold coughed, trying to straighten himself despite the sting of the spray still burning his eyes. "I'm going to make you regret this." The officer sighed, returning to his previous line of questioning. "Mr. Mitchell, let's hear your side of the story." "Fine," I huffed, turning my attention back to the officers. "This man has been harassing me for months as part of his HOA's agenda to intimidate me into compliance with rules I don't have to follow. I've told him to stay off my property, but he thinks his title gives him power over my land." "Are you trespassing?" the officer asked pointedly, looking at Harold. Harold opened his mouth to retort, but nothing came out. He was too busy blinking away tears, fury and fear flickering across his face. "I think we can safely say you were in the wrong here," the other officer concluded, now leaning against the barn wall, arms crossed. "You're not law enforcement, Mr. Simmons." Harold fumed, trying to regain his composure while retreating a few steps. "I'll have you all fired for this." The officer raised an eyebrow. "Good luck with that. Best you can do is explain your actions in court. We're going to need statements from both of you." As the officers began separating us, I couldn't shake the thought that this wasn't over. Harold's face twisted into a snarl as he glared at me. "You think this is a victory? You have no idea who you're up against." I met his gaze steadily, knowing that was the threat. He had potential for mischief. I felt a chill creep in as I mentally prepared myself for the next moves of the man desperate to maintain his foothold on perceived power. Because I knew, in that moment, This was only the beginning. Harold sneered. You think this is a victory? You have no idea who you're up against. His voice dripped with venom, and I could see rage simmering just beneath the surface, almost like a volcano threatening to erupt. I know exactly who I'm dealing with, I shot back, refusing to back down. The officers were taking notes, exchanging glances, and I sensed the tension in the air thickening. Just remember, Mitchell, Harold continued, suddenly dropping the bravado, eyes narrowing. You're not just fighting me. You're fighting the entire Whispering Pines HOA. We've got resources. Resources? I scoffed, shaking my head. You mean numerous complaints that haven't saved you from getting pepper sprayed today? One of the officers chuckled, but the other remained focused. Okay, let's all just take a breath here. We need facts, not theatrics. Harold stood tall, wiping the remnants of the spray from his eyes. You think I'm going to let this slide? You think I won't retaliate? His tone shifted, menacing, as if he held all the cards. You'll see what happens when you cross the Whispering Pines HOA. You won't just lose your ranch, you'll lose everything. Try me, I said, an unexpected thrill surging through me. I was tired of being bullied, tired of their empty threats. You're running a business here, right? Harold continued, his expression cold and calculating. Let's see how much money you really have to play with. He pointed toward the barn, where boxes were stacked high with my ranch's products, organic honey, handmade crafts, and various goods that I had spent years cultivating. I could easily file complaints against every single product you sell. Think of the fines. A chill ran through me as the implication hit hard. Every complaint he filed could tie up my resources, hold me under scrutiny, ruin everything I had worked for. My stomach twisted at the thought. Let me remind you, I said, trying to maintain my composure, you have no grounds for complaint. I've kept everything above board. And as for fines, you know just as well as I do that the law isn't on your side. The officer interjected, we'll ensure both sides are heard. But if there's evidence of you trying to manipulate the system, you'll be in more trouble than this. But it was too late. Harold's expression hardened, and I could tell the wheels in his mind were turning. He was ready to escalate things, to take this from petty squabbling to something dark and dangerous. Let's not waste time, Harold said with a tight-lipped smile. I'll make sure this ends in my favor, one way or another. I have friends in high places who'd love to back me up. With those words, the air shifted. I could tell he was serious. The idea of some shadowy alliance was all too real. Panic clawed at my insides. But as I glanced at my loyal dog Max by my side, I felt a fierce swell of determination. Good luck finding allies willing to put their names on the line for a bully, I replied, my voice steady but cold. You're the one who broke in here, after all. Your so-called friends need to understand to hell with their frivolous rules. He opened his mouth, ready to hurl another threat, but then the officer interrupted again. That's enough. You two need to separate, now. As they moved to guide Harold away, he shot me a look of pure hatred. Remember this moment, Mitchell. I won't forget it, and I won't allow you to get away with this. As he turned to leave, I caught the glint of something in his pocket, a small metallic device barely visible against the fabric of his pants. My instincts sparked. There was something he wasn't revealing. A creeping dread settled in my gut. What was that? I called out, my mind racing with possibilities. He paused, a scowl forming. Just a little insurance policy, that's all, he replied, a sly smirk creeping onto his face. My heart dropped as I realized the implications. He had something that could be dangerous. What kind of insurance? Oh, just a little something for the incredible legal fees I'll be incurring. His tone was mocking, as if to bait me. Let's just say I've got a way to dig into your finances, Mitchell. You're going to wish you'd sold your precious ranch when you had the chance. My mind whirled as Harold was led outside by the officers. The last glimpse I caught of him was his grim smile, filled with unfathomable menace. Turning back to the barn, reality hit me like a sledgehammer. I had been blindsided, again. I needed to act fast. This wasn't just about standing my ground, it was about protecting everything I loved. I won't let him win, Max, I muttered to my dog, who offered a bark of encouragement. I'll fight tooth and nail if I have to. As the officers wrapped up their questioning, I contemplated the next steps. Determined, I pulled out my phone and began documenting everything. The scene, the confrontation, Harold's threats. I needed evidence. The stakes were higher than anything I'd imagined. The Whispering Pines HOA thought they could intimidate me, but I wasn't backing down. I would dig deeper than Harold ever expected. I would find a way to fight back and protect my home, no matter what it took. And as the night closed in on my ranch, I vowed that when the dust settled, it would be my name at the top. They could threaten and conspire all they wanted, but the spirit of this land, my land, would never be broken. Let's just say I've got a way to dig into your finances, Mitchell, Harold said with that infuriating smirk as he stepped back toward the cruiser. The officers were still keeping an eye on me, but as the adrenaline coursed through my veins, I could feel my resolve hardening, like iron being forged in fire. Insurance policy. Got it, I muttered under my breath, my mind racing with possibilities. Harold would use whatever he had to crush me. I had to act fast. Max, let's go, I said, urgency filling my voice as I headed toward the house. The first thing I did was rummage through my papers in the small office I used for business. I needed a plan, a counterattack. Searching through the files, I pulled out the documents proving my property lines, business licenses, and my income tax returns. I needed to build a solid defense against whatever he was concocting. But then, my eyes fell on something that made my heart race, a copy of the last HOA meeting minutes. In those documents lay a myriad of potential secrets. If there were illegal activities, I might not just fight back, I could turn the tables entirely. Just as I was about to pull the papers from the stack, my phone buzzed ominously, a text from an unknown number. You're in over your head, Mitchell. Watch your back. I froze, feeling the air thicken around me. Max. I tossed aside the papers and grabbed my jacket. We need to get to town and find some answers. There's more to this than I realized. We jumped into my old truck, the engine sputtering to life as the tension in my chest grew. As I drove the familiar rural roads, I mulled over Harold's words. He was a dangerous man who thrived on fear and manipulation. If he had documents, dote on me, who knows what else he had in his back pocket. Reaching the diner where the monthly HOA meetings usually took place, I barged in, scanning the room. A few locals were enjoying their evening meals, but the gossip and murmurs hushed as I entered. I spotted Marge, an older waitress with an ear for secrets. Marge. I called, striding to her. I need information. Anything about Harold or the HOA. Her brow furrowed as she leaned in close. What's going on with him? I heard you pepper sprayed him. He went snooping around my ranch, and I want to know what he's planning. He seems to have something on me. Marge's eyes widened, and she glanced around the diner as if the walls had ears. You're treading dangerous waters, kid. They've been moving funds around, real dodgy business. If you dig too deep, they'll retaliate. My heart raced. Do you have proof? Documentation. She nodded, leaning closer still. I know someone who might have the paperwork you need, but it won't be easy to get. Their protection runs deep. Are you sure you want to do this? Yes, I said fiercely. I won't back down now. All right. Meet me at the old barn on Mill Creek Road after dark. But tread carefully, you're not the only one looking for answers. After she walked away, my thoughts spiraled wildly. The old barn? It was a relic from long ago, abandoned but rich with hidden history. I had to tread lightly, but this was my chance at taking back control. As night fell, I drove back toward my ranch, adrenaline pushing me beyond fear. The stars littered the sky, and shadows danced across the road as I parked near the barn. The chilling wind whispered through the trees, a warning against the darkness that lay ahead. I stepped inside, my heart pounding. Max sniffed the air, alert as I moved cautiously toward the rear, where I thought I saw a faint light glimmering. Marge. I called softly, my voice echoing. Is that you? There was no reply. Unease snaked through me, tightening its grip. I scanned the space for any signs of life and saw a flicker at the far end near the hay bales. Steeling myself, I approached, careful with my movements. As I rounded a corner, I found not Marge but a figure cloaked in shadows. My breath caught in my throat. Harold. Ah, Mitchell. You shouldn't have come here. He stepped forward into the dim light, his eyes glinting with malice. Behind him, I spotted stacks of papers, some with my name on them. I knew you were trouble, I said, backing away. What do you want? Just a friendly reminder. This is my territory. You really think you could come here and dig up secrets without consequences? Suddenly, he raised his phone, revealing a thin device attached to it, the same one I'd seen in his pocket before. Foolishly, you've done my job for me, he said casually. With the press of a button, I can unravel everything you've worked for. I felt a rush of panic, eyes darting back to the papers. If you think I'll let you win, you're dead wrong, I shot back, adrenaline pumping through me. I have the minutes from your last meeting. You and your cronies have been skimming funds. A flicker of uncertainty crossed his face before it hardened again. Don't be naive. That's nothing but a threat that could blow up in your face. But I saw a glint of fear behind his bravado. You don't scare me, Harold. You think you can control everything? You're the one who's running scared now. Before he could respond, Max lunged forward, barking fiercely. The sudden movement startled Harold, making him stumble back into the stacks of papers. In that split second, I lunged for his phone, swiping it from his grasp. No. Harold shouted. I pressed the button before he could react, fingers flying to dial the authorities. You've crossed too many lines, and it's time people knew about it. Stop. You moron, you don't know what you're doing. His voice was frantic, panic flooding his face as he reached for me, but I bobbed and weaved, keeping the phone out of reach. In a desperate move, Harold lunged at me, but I spun, using his momentum against him. He stumbled into the hay bales, gasping as I held the phone to my ear, waiting for an operator to pick up on the other end. 911, what's your emergency? A calm voice inquired, and I felt the weight of the moment. Everything depended on this call. Yes, I'm at the old barn on Mill Creek Road. There's an illegal operation tied to the Whispering Pines HOA. Send someone now. Harold scrambled to his feet, eyes wild. You'll regret this, Mitchell. You won't get away with it. I finished the call, just as the heavy noise of engines echoed in the distance. Harold's panic turned to fury, but he was cornered. With nowhere to go, he struck one last blow. Think you've won? You have no idea what lurks behind those papers. I've been burying the truth for years. Truth. I counted, a wave of defiance sweeping through me. Or secrets that would unravel your hold. Your insurance policy is a house of cards that's about to come crashing down. Before he could retort, the lights of police cruisers flooded the barn, illuminating the darkness and the rut he had cultivated. Officers poured in, surrounding us. Freeze. Hands in the air. Harold raised his hands, a look of defeat now masking his earlier bravado. I stood tall, the adrenaline finally ebbing away as I watched him deflate. The officers handcuffed him, and as I stepped back, I could finally breathe. The nightmare was ending. As the convoy began to leave with Harold in custody, one of the officers turned to me. Great job, kid. Not many would have the guts to stand up to him. I felt a rush of triumph coupled with a sense of closure. The truth always comes out eventually, doesn't it? I replied, glancing back at the barn, a place that was once a symbol of fear now transformed into a beacon of resilience. Let's keep it that way, the officer said, and I nodded, knowing this was a new beginning. Harold's threats would echo in my mind for a while, but they wouldn't define me. I'd fought back, uncovered truths that would shake his empire, and stood my ground. Everything I had worked for was safe, and as the dawn began to break across the horizon, the light filtering through the trees, I knew one thing for certain. This wasn't just about winning. It was about reclaiming not only my land but my spirit. And that made me unstoppable.